Hey YouTube, David Staples back with another video. So Linux is a very popular operating system to run for servers. Some people use it for their desktop environment, but primarily my use has always been for some sort of a server environment, whether it's a MySQL server or a web server. It is a very handy platform to know. So one of the common distributions of it that I typically recommend for people to look into if they're looking at getting into Linux is CentOS. So I'm going to walk you through the installation of CentOS today, and hopefully you can go ahead and duplicate this on your own. So we're coming up with that right now. So as I said, we're going to go ahead and install CentOS on a machine today. So I install this typically into a virtual machine. On my Mac, I'm running VMware Fusion. There are other options out there such as VirtualBox, as well as various other platforms. I happen to be a Mac user, so of course I'm using VMware Fusion. So essentially I'm going to come over here to tell it to add new, and I'm going to tell it to create a custom virtual machine and click on continue. So of course, I've already got Linux selected as the default here. That must have been the last operating system I installed. And of course, CentOS is listed here. As you can see, they do have preset options for Debian. They've got Fedora, they've got Mandrake, OpenSUSE, Red Hat, Ubuntu, Turbo Linux. There's lots and lots of distributions of Linux out there. So of course, I do see Gentoo is missing from the list. But there's a whole bunch of different ones out there. We're only really talking about CentOS at the moment. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the continue button here. And of course it's going to ask me if I want to create a new virtual disk or use an existing one. I'm going to go ahead and create a new virtual disk. We'll leave that at 20 gigs. That's totally fine for our purposes here. And then it basically just takes me to the options where I can go ahead and click on finish, or I can come in and customize my settings, such as if I want to use more processor or whatever else. So I'm going to call this CentOS-2 since I've got a -1 up there already. And so we'll click on save. And of course, since I told it to customize, it went ahead and popped up my settings options here, my settings dialog box. So I can click on processors and memory and choose more or less memory. Since I've got 16 gigs on the Mac, dedicating a gig of memory to a virtual machine really isn't that big of a deal. So I'm just going to leave these alone. There are some other things that could come in here and just make sure that I'm not sharing any folders if I want to make sure that it's kind of isolated from the host environment, the Mac itself. If I want to be able to share files back and forth, I could certainly do that. There is also this isolation mode over here where I can enable things like drag and drop of files. I'm going to go ahead and disable that, but I will allow copy and paste. So go ahead and click on show all. Since there's really not anything else that I want to come in here and manually set, I'll go ahead and just close this. And you'll see that it will actually take me over here to my CentOS window. So the next thing that I'll want to do is come over here to where it shows me kind of a little icon for a disk drive, and I'm going to click on that, and we'll tell it to choose disk or disk image. So I've got my ISOs over here in my drive already, so I just need to go in and choose that ISO, but it doesn't automatically mount that drive, so I do need to actually come in here and tell it to connect to CD or DVD. You'll notice that that icon now, instead of being grayed out, is actually a bit darker, so that's basically saying that my drive is currently connected. And remember, that is virtually, so I don't even really have an optical drive on this machine. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the play button here, and that's going to go ahead and launch into the startup. And of course, the first option that it gives me, I'm going to go ahead and make this a little bit bigger so that you guys can see this a little better. So the first option it gives me is to install CentOS, and so I'm going to go ahead and scroll up to that and press my enter key. And then it says press enter to begin the installation process, so I'll go ahead and press my enter key here again. And again, make this a bit bigger so that you guys can see it a little better. And of course it's going to keep on resizing it. So hopefully this is the last resize that I'll need to do. But as it goes through, it's basically detecting what devices are there as part of the hardware. It runs Anaconda, which is our installer here. And should bring up my, there we go, welcome to CentOS Linux 7. So Since I am in the United States and I want this in English, I'm going to go ahead and just leave the defaults as being English and click on Continue. And then it gives me a variety of different options here. So what I'm going to do is come down in here, and I need to come in and actually confirm the automatic partitioning. If I wanted to repartition this manually, I could. I'm fine with the way that they've partitioned it here, just for a standard installation, just for a test environment. If I was installing this on some sort of a production server, I would probably go through and repartition the disks in a little different manner to make sure that it was done exactly as I need it. But I'll go ahead and click on Done there. You'll notice that it takes off that little warning icon. One of the next things I'll do is I'll come down here to where it says Network and Hostname, and I'm going to go ahead and tell it to enable my Ethernet connection, so it will allow me to have a network connection. You'll see it's gone ahead and obtained an IP address from the DHCP server here, and so I'll go ahead and click on Done here. Next I'll come over here to where it says Software Selection. And this is where I can actually choose how I actually want this server to be used. So for the purposes of the security classes that I teach, it would be handy to have a web server running that can actually show how some of the different messages are sent back and forth in clear text. So that's the main reason that I'm actually coming in and installing a server today. So we're going to go ahead and choose a basic web server. And of course you'll see that there's various different options that I can choose over here on the right hand side. There's a MariaDB SQL database client, there's PHP support. I'll go ahead and build in PHP support because I am a PHP developer, so that would be kind of nice to have. We've got Python, remote management tools, we've got web servlet engines if I'm doing Java servlets, which I'm not, but it does have the option for development tools, security tools, smart card support. I'm just going to leave all those unchecked, at least for the time being. I can always come back and change that if I'd like to. I don't really need it to attach to network storage, so I'll just go ahead and click on the Done button over here. And so it goes through, it checks all the dependencies, makes sure that everything looks good. And so I'm going to go ahead and click on Begin Installation. And now it's going to prompt me to set the root password. So I'll go ahead and click on that, and let's see. Go ahead and type in one of my many passwords here. Okay, so go ahead and click on Done here. We could go ahead and create a user if I want to, so I'll go ahead and click on Create User, and we'll just say David Staples. I'll just leave the username as dstaples, and we'll just put in another password here. Okay, and go ahead and click on Done as well. And as you can see in the background, it has been installing the various different files already, so we're just going to give it a little bit more time to do what it needs to do. And this should take hopefully no more than just another couple of minutes. And as you can see here, it's installing the kernel, which of course is the very core of the operating system. We've got Postfix being installed, which is a mail server. Okay, so we just installed the bootloader, and it is creating a few more configuration files here. The bootloader, of course, is what is going to actually boot up the operating system. So typically it loads itself onto the master boot record of a hard drive. So of course with Linux that's going to be grub or grub2 these days. So this should be just about done here, and at that point it will go ahead and reboot. And as you can see, it looks like Linux is finished installing. So we're going to go ahead and click on our reboot option here, or reboot button. CentOS is now successfully installed, ready for your use. Go ahead and reboot, start using it. So sounds perfect. Click on reboot here. And so it of course sends the termination signals to the system to reboot here. And now of course you can see that it basically has installed two options. So I've got CentOS as well as a recovery option there. So if I ever have issues with this one, I could theoretically use that recovery option there to still get into the system. And of course we're booting up now, and here we are at the localhost login. So remember, I created the user root. Again, best practice is not going to be login using the root user. Typically it's best practice to log in as one of the other users that you create. For our purposes here, I'm just going to go ahead and log in just to kind of show you into the system. Put in my password here, and so we are in. So as you can see, here's an ls, here's pwd, I'm in /root, cd/etc. Shows that I've got a whole bunch of files that have installed, and of course we're going to be talking about some of these files in a later video, but that is the installation of CentOS 7. As you can see, it is very easy, very straightforward. It can take a few minutes, of course. We've been running, if I check the timer here, looks like less than 15 minutes, so it's still not too terribly bad, especially when you compare to some of the older days of Windows where an installation could easily run 45 minutes to an hour or more. So we have a completely ready to go web server here that of course we need to go through and do some configuration on, but I'll do that another time. But in the meantime, certainly appreciate you guys watching this video. If you liked it, be sure to click on that little thumbs up or like button down below, and be sure to subscribe as well. But for now, I appreciate you guys taking a few minutes to watch, and good luck with your own installations. If you've got any questions, feel free to leave those in the comments below, and I will see you very soon. You guys take care.